Space Cowboy Books presents Simultaneous Times, a science and speculative fiction podcast. Short stories to stir the imagination by contemporary authors.
The Ebb Somatic by Susan Rukeyser, with music by Fog Machine, read by the author, Zara Kand, and Jean-Paul Garnier. Hello? This is Kurt Harrison, War Secretary for the Winthrop administration. I'm calling to report a pedestrian death. I'm on St. Monica Boulevard at Canyon Drive, at the former Beverly Gardens Park. I'm afraid that I hit a young woman with my 2051 Humvee Real American Patriot Edition. The girl is 21 and pays no attention, dressed like she's a worker, but she's not. Her name is Archie Harrison, and she's my daughter. She lives in one of those rundown high-rises on the Wilshire Corridor. She works for some communist outfit, handing out food to the poor. Honestly, I've been concerned for her mental health. I assume we can handle this discreetly. You understand, this is difficult for me. I'm in the middle of tough negotiations with Wildfire Aeronautics. I don't blame my daughter for getting herself killed, but she was no angel.
Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of Bye Bye Billionaires. I'm your host, Purity Windsor, with the team at Wildfire Entertainment who brought you They Had It Coming and It's a Man's World, Thank God. Subscribe now for direct download to your auditory implant, exclusively for our rhodium level subscribers to the Billionaires Mean Business, or BM Biz network. Join us as we look at the private lives and dirty little secrets of rebellious billionaire daughters who learned the hard way. Resistance is fatal. In tonight's episode, we'll meet doomed billionairess Archie Harrison. Her father, Kurt Harrison, was a Traditional Values Inc. tycoon who became Secretary of War under our great President Winthrop, or Father Win. He worked out of the Defense Department's West Coast office in what used to be Los Angeles, but was by then, thank you, Father Win, known as the Angels. Doesn't that have a prettier sound? Archie's story begins on December 30th, 2050, the day she fell in love, according to her personal diary, recently acquired by Wildfire Entertainment. 24 hours later, she was dead.
It's what you do for a younger you.
Hi, this is Purity Windsor, Wildfire Entertainment personality, and until recently, loving and, despite what you may have heard, loyal wife of Skip Jensen, water technician and good man. Confession time, I am 50 years old. So obviously I've tried everything. Injectable gels and neurotoxins, resurfacing lasers and deep acid peels, time-rewinding serums, anti-aging masks. But I can't deny it. In the war against time, I'm a loser. Some women don't mind walking around looking their age, but I want to do better. As we wrap production of Bye Bye Billionaires, I was contacted by Essential Beauty, a division of our sponsor Traditional Values Inc. They asked me to try their new game-changing beauty innovation, the Ebb Somatic. From the enclosed pamphlet. The Ebb Somatic delivers comprehensive, youth-enhancing rejuvenation, employing a proprietary combination of cutting-edge dermatological technologies, solving once and for all the problem of aging in women. I look forward to sharing my Ebb Somatic journey with you, my dear listeners.
It's what you do for a younger you.
In the early morning of December 30th, 2050, Archie set off for work. She walked 6 feet apart from everyone, as was the custom since COVID-19 ushered in the age of infections. The cold, toxic air of Beverly Hills hung yellow. Like most people, Archie wore a respirator mask. A heavy hooded coat helped cut the chill and hid her hair, cut short as a boy's, a clear violation of 2031's Traditional Morality Initiative, or TMI. Beneath her coat, Archie wore a tunic as required of all women, regardless of class. It was a cheap poly blend, although she could afford better. She could also afford a nice chrome handle for the suck pen dangling from her mouth as she walked. But in her diary, she wrote, "Government-mandated consumption of female hormones and sweeteners is bad enough. I'm not going to invest in my own oppression. Let my suck pen be as ugly as this administration's treatment of women." Archie Harrison's words are repeated here for entertainment purposes only. We apologize to listeners offended by the political nature of tonight's episode. Archie turned down Rodeo Drive. After 2039's American Language Act, everyone pronounced it the American way. From her diary, we know that Archie hoped to run into a cute worker girl she'd spotted the previous morning at the corner of Rodeo and Wilshire. The boutiques and designer showrooms of Rodeo Drive were long closed to the public. But with a swipe of a billionaire's credit card, steel shutters retracted from the windows, and for 3 minutes, everything was his to behold, if not hold. Crown jewels of a lesser royal, exiled from the former European Union, leaded crystal water pitchers too heavy to lift, slinky, silky dresses, the kind women get arrested for these days, and furs from the now extinct panda bear, left behind by former First Lady Melania Trump when she fled to her Russian lover's yacht, docked in Montenegro, which had no extradition treaty with the United States. Archie stopped at the end of the block, where workers trudged along Wilshire Boulevard to whatever jobs they were assigned. At Tiffany & Co., Rodeo Drive's most popular and least hygienic peep show, a billionaire pressed against a window displaying dozens of little blue boxes. Archie kept her eyes forward. Years ago, she was added to the misandrist activity watch list, or MAL, for outspokenness and, of course, her hair. She was classified as a breeder failed that same year when rumors of her homosexuality surfaced in some evangelical tabloids. Everyone felt sorry for her father. Archie scanned the crowd. The girls she sought had long, frizzy dark hair and eyes that understood. Archie knew some girls believed what was piped through their implants, but maybe the two of them had a chance. Hello again, this is Purity Windsor. I'm back to report on my first session with the Ep.29. It took just 15 minutes, seated in a comfortable chair in my own home. It was painful, but not the worst I've borne for beauty's sake. Soon after, I noticed a softening of my deepest lines and wrinkles, as if the last 15 years were erased. My jawline no longer sagged. My eyes were bright and wide open, like when I was 35 and cried a lot, but still had hope. When I was 35, I was still behind the cash register at Wildfire Drug because, confession time, I was born worker class. I was there when Skip Jensen walked in and asked where we hid the triple antibiotic cream. He said, "They're wrong when they say it's useless against the new strains." I agreed, because arguing doesn't get you a husband. The Ep.29 restored more than just my face. My neck and knees feel flexible and strong. My aches are gone. My hair returned to the rich brown it was before the gray crept in and I bleached it blonde. My menstrual periods came back, nice and regular. I did not care for that, but otherwise, I rate the Ep.29 very highly.
It's what you do for a younger you.
On the morning of December 30th, 2050, Archie Harrison walked beside the girl she had hoped to find. After introducing herself, she tried to keep her distance, but kept drifting closer. Billionaires in jeeps swerved around them. Archie held out an issue of Earthbound, one of several newsletters she published with other women on the misandrist activity watch list. Z scanned the cover before slipping it inside her coat. "What's the Cloisters?" she asked, voice raised to be heard through her respirator mask. "It's a floating, off-Earth, ultra-high security luxury biosphere for billionaires," Archie said. A super shady collaboration between Wildfire Aeronautics and the Winthrop administration. The workers assigned to build it endured horrifying conditions. She didn't add that her father, Secretary Harrison, was heavily invested in the Cloisters. Z said, "I'm a nanny for billionaires here in Beverly Hills. The parents are no better than the kids. They're selfish and they don't clean their messes." They walked in silence that was comfortable if expectant. Archie wrote in her diary that she almost reached for Z's hand, as if that was something she could do. Archie said to Z, "Tell me one thing about you." "One thing?" "My son is 3 and he has severe asthma. He needs medicine, but I don't have that kind of money. Some of the kids I watch have drugs I'd steal. I swear I would if I thought I could get away with it." "Tell me what you need," Archie said. "I'll get it." "You have a pharmacy card?" "I guessed right. You're not worker class, despite the outfit." "Let me help," Archie said. Z pulled a marker from her pocket and asked if Archie had anything to write on. Archie thrust out her forearm, defying social distancing guidelines, not to mention the traditional morality initiative. On the inside of Archie's arm, Z wrote the names of prescriptions she'd seen stockpiled in the cupboards of billionaires. Archie knew it was love she felt. She said, "Tomorrow morning, 7:30, corner of St. Monica Boulevard and Canyon Drive." Then she was off, in search of the nearest wildfire drug. Hi guys, this is Purity. I just did my second session with the Ep.29. In a word, freaking amazing. I look and feel young enough that anything is possible. My skin is supple and firm and glowing pink like when I was 20, long before Skip Jensen. When I was 20, I had sex with tons of worker boys, anyone who asked. Like maybe one of them would make my life interesting. Nope. The world was loud and uncertain. It was the same inside my head. For all I knew, love cured loneliness. I look like I drink tons of water because I do. Skip left me with a case of purification tablets. I told you he was a good man. It was an honor to be his wife. What is up with my hormones? Tell me you'll edit this. Do not let me sound like a freak. Anyway, I look hot, okay? Get your Ep.29 today because, OMG, you will die. December 31st, 2050, the last day of Archie Harrison's life, began as an otherwise unremarkable Saturday, as New Year's celebrations were banned years earlier for everyone's safety. During the busy morning commute, Archie and Z were seen together in the old Beverly Gardens Park, along St. Monica Boulevard at Canyon Drive. They stood on a bed of dirt. Archie handed Z a wildfire drug bag, which raised some eyebrows. It was illegal for billionaires to use their pharmacy cards to purchase anything for workers who hadn't earned their right to health care. Z opened the bag and saw a portable nebulizer, vials of corticosteroids, and a rescue inhaler filled with a bronchodilator. She looked at Archie and raised her respirator mask. Archie did the same. For a moment, witnesses said, it looked like they might actually kiss. But then Z pulled down her mask. "I did this machine 3 whole times and it mated me pretty. I was pretty before but old, like 20 or 35, a grandma. My daddy gets mad when I'm bad. He says, "Purity, good girls don't cry or scream." I tried to be sad, but I was mad too. I got mixed up. Now I am 5 and I am happy all the time. My face is round and pink, I guess. I don't know, I don't look in the stupid mirror. My legs feel like I could run 10 trillion million miles. I could run right now, but I'm supposed to be good.
It's what you do for a younger you.
Officer Ditch McConnell of the LAPD was first on the scene at the former Beverly Gardens Park. He took several witness accounts. Archie and Z were engaged in what looked like an emotionally upsetting conversation when a billionaire's white Humvee, traveling west on St. Monica, attempted to attract their attention. The driver, later identified as Secretary Harrison, leaned out a window in his military-grade respirator mask to shout what were obviously intended as compliments. The two women ignored him. Understandably, he became enraged. He pulled over to confront the women. But before he could stop, Archie ran from Z and into the path of her father's Humvee. Witnesses told Officer McConnell that Z followed Archie into the street and fell beside her, howling like an animal, not a woman, even worker class. Then she ran off into the smog, clutching the bag from Wildfire Drug. Secretary Harrison told Officer McConnell, "I didn't realize it was my daughter. I wasn't looking at her face. Did you find the other one? Long, frizzy dark hair, nice body. Before she ran off, she went through Archie's pockets and took something." He said it was a shock, realizing the girl who lay bloody and crumpled beneath his tires was his daughter. In that cheap tunic, like any woman, her ruined hair soaked through with blood. He said, "She's never been so quiet." Later, when a tabloid reporter asked if he'd resented his daughter's vocal opposition to the cloisters, Secretary Harrison said, "I was barely aware of that earthbound rag from a group of known man-haters." In the months that followed, Archie's pharmacy card was recovered, confiscated when an attempt to refill asthma medication was flagged as suspicious. The suspect who fled the scene was described as a young woman with long, frizzy, dark hair. Hello, my friends. This is Purity. I have experienced the ebb somatic for a fourth and final time. I am no longer 50 years old, or 35, or 20, or 5. I am essentially me. Pre-birth, post-death. What is the difference? Does it matter? In this vast black suspension of time, I am stardust, waiting my turn, content to remain here if it is never my turn again. I feel nothing but the rightness of it. Gone are my face and body's 7 worst signs of aging, and also gone are my face and body. I am free to expand and fill space beyond the margins of expectation. Thanks to the ebb somatic, I am more beautiful than I ever was, alive.
This episode of Bye Bye Billionairess was dedicated to Purity Windsor, a valued member of the Wildfire Entertainment family. We were assured by Essential Beauty and its parent company, Traditional Values, Inc., that Purity's results were atypical. Users of the ebb somatic can almost always expect great results. Concerns persist that Purity was not entirely forthcoming on her pre-existing condition disclosure form. Use of the ebb somatic can cause side effects including, but not limited to, depression, rapid heart rate, irritability, hiccups, suicidal thoughts, seizures, blood clots, body rash, anaphylaxis, unusual dreams, delusions of grandeur, low blood pressure, mouth blisters, hallucinations, erectile dysfunction, spontaneous orgasm, and/or death. Wildfire Drug sends their deepest condolences to Purity's beloved ex-husband Skip Jensen. We'd like to offer her listeners a 10% discount on their purchase of the Epsomatic. Simply enter the code PURITY10 at checkout. Do it for Purity.
A Sound from the Universe by Robin Rose Graves, with music by Red Blue Black Silver, read by Zara Kand.
Voices permeate from the floor below. They drone like humming bees. The low tones of two strangers in her home, paced steadily and monotonous with their questions, one after another. Then there is her mother, whose familiar voice raises in pitch as the subject grows with intensity. Danny can't make out words, but she knows what is being said. The noise is non-intrusive, yet too loud at the same time. Danny nestles earbuds into her ears, connects them to the headphone jack of an old portable radio, tuning the sound until the static dissolves away. It was Molly's, out of style even for her 20-year-old sister, but she always had a heart for retro sound equipment. If her sister caught her with the relic, she would be in trouble, but there was no concern for that, not anymore. The room across from hers is ghostly still. Light pours in through parted curtains. It falls on an unmade bed and clothes strewn about the floor. Her sister never liked to pick up after herself. The room appeared as if it was still waiting for Molly. It wasn't the only thing that was. "Danny?" Her mother's voice is nearly drowned out with the music, but when Danny notices the figure standing there, she removes the earbuds and gives her attention. "The investigators would like to speak with you." It was a moment Danny was trying to put off, but there was no excuse to do so now. Her footsteps are heavy as she trudges down the stairs. She can feel the twin pair of eyes looking at her, but refuses to meet their glance. Two women dressed in uniform. The one with her lips pulled into a thin line clears her throat for Danny's attention. "Can you take those off?" The request is more like an order. Danny rolls her eyes, shuts the radio off, and sets it aside. "We'd like to hear, in your own words, what happened to your sister?" Danny knows what her mother said, or at least she has a good guess of it. Their mutual mother, a chronic worrier, took her sister's absence as a sign of trouble. Danny had already explained to her what had happened. If she had listened, these two investigators would not be here now, poking through wounds that were still fresh. "She was abducted," Danny begins, "by aliens." The thin-lipped investigator looks tired, no doubt from speaking to her mother. The other looked happy to accept multiple glasses of iced tea, which her mother repeatedly poured. "Kid, this is a serious investigation," says Thin Lips. Danny reads the name Chambers embroidered on her uniform. "I'm 13, thanks," Danny replies, not appreciating being called a kid. The iced tea lover took compassion. "Your sister could be in danger. She could be hurt. The sooner we find her, the better." Her tag reads, Rosario. "But we need your help." Danny refrains from rolling her eyes. It's not an easy task. "I already told you." Just like she had already told her mother, she hears a sigh from Chambers. "And what makes you convinced that she was abducted?" asks Chambers. "Because I saw," Danny holds her ground. "Mom pays me to spy on Molly." Her eyes shift to her mom, standing at the edge of the room and looking towards Danny as if she took her eyes off of her, she would disappear like her other daughter. She takes this glance as her cue to give them all space, and exits the room. She wants to make sure Molly isn't doing anything she shouldn't be, drugs and the like, says Danny. And does she? The question sounds methodical, as if it were just another box to tick. No, she's well behaved, I guess. Her voice drifts off with her attention. Have you ever heard of broken starships? She changes directions. Chambers breathes a humorless laugh, closing her eyes and giving her head a shake. I think that's a band, Rosario answers, but her hesitation makes it sound more like a question. When Chambers throws her a look, her partner explains, My kid likes to go to the local shows. Why is this relevant? Chambers asks, her eyes back on Danny. Because it's the reason they came, Danny says. My sister is in that band. She helped form it. At the start, it was only her and Diego. And who's Diego? A childhood friend. I've known him all my life because he and Molly have been glued at the hip since before I was born, says Danny. He used to live right next door. Then his parents divorced and he moved to a new neighborhood. That never stopped him from coming over, nearly every day. She laughs. There's a fondness in remembering and a sadness at what she was sure was the end. Chambers preoccupies herself with scratching something onto her notepad. It was a small project between two lifelong friends. Diego laid down beats and remixes and Molly sang. They weren't very good. And she wasn't only saying that to be mean. They hadn't any sort of following. They barely managed to take the project out of practicing in the garage. For them, it was more like something to do than a proper attempt at a career in music. I can remember the first night they came. I was upstairs in my bedroom over the garage. There was light pouring out on the driveway as the band practiced inside, music projecting to an absent audience. And then, out of the darkness, there they were. There who were? Rosario asks. The aliens. Danny did not miss a beat. Two figures stepped out of the shadows, standing side by side. Can you describe what they looked like? Rosario asks. There is genuine interest in her voice. They were both tall for humans. One was dark enough to blend in with the night. She had a wide, pear-shaped body and large coiled hair she attempted to keep restrained in two buns, and the other, pale and lanky, dark eyes that looked slightly too big for their face and an outdated bowl cut to top it off. These sound like regular people to me, not extraterrestrials, says Chambers. Danny had already anticipated this response. Regardless, it was still frustrating. They only looked human, replies Danny. But it was a disguise. She notices the look Chambers throws her partner. Danny feels as if she has no choice but to continue in hopes that something might stick. Molly and Diego were confused. They had never seen these people before. At first, they expected to be told the noise was too loud or asked to stop their dreadful music. We went to watch. The one with the bowl cut was first to speak. They would later be known to Molly and Diego as Orlando. The other, they would call Cedra. I don't know if those were their actual names. If that was their names in translation or names they had chosen for themselves, but that's what they were called, Orlando and Cedra. So, it became a small impromptu show, as broken spaceships played through their modest discography. Once they finished, neither clapped. They just stood up and left. The band thought that was the end of it, but the following night, as they practiced, the two showed up again. And after that, Orlando and Cedra began to come every night to hear them. The same silence following each song until there weren't any more to play, and they would both stand and walk away without any comment. Where they went, I can only guess. Which would be, well, they had to come to Earth somehow, so their spaceship, I imagine. Wait a minute. Two strangers appeared at your house every night out of the blue and Molly just accepted it? Asks Chambers. She didn't need the investigator to point out how peculiar it sounded. It was odd, yes, But it kind of helped to build their confidence, says Danny. One time, Mom even asked who these people were. Molly lied, said they were friends. I think neither her nor Diego knew whether to be weirded out or flattered, but neither of them were willing to rat the aliens out. Two kind of weird fans were better than the none they had before. Besides, they hadn't done anything to make anyone think they were going to cause harm. Anyone included herself. What she chose to tell Mom in exchange for cash was not always the full truth. Having them as an audience actually encouraged Molly and Diego to put themselves out there. Suddenly, Broken Starships was looking to play a show for the first time in ages. It was a small crowd, and most of the people were only there for the headliner. Sure enough, standing right at the stage during their set was Orlando and Cedra, unmoving and transfixed, exactly like they did in the driveway during practice. After their set was over, Molly approached them. She took them backstage. I wasn't allowed to follow. Danny's face twists at the last part. It was one of the many times she had been excluded. I don't know what happened in the conversation that followed, but I think they both finally got answers. After that, something changed in their relationship. I don't just mean the obvious. The aliens were invited to join in at practice. They added theremin and drums to existing songs. Together, the foursome even began writing new content. Broken Starships began playing shows regularly, making a small name for themselves in the local community, even gathering somewhat of a following. It seems like Orlando and Cedra were the missing piece, not only because of the instruments they added, but a new creative vision for the band. They embraced their oddness, even played into the concept that they were from outer space. People really responded to their strange, otherworldly reputation. The aliens started to be around more after that. I'd come downstairs to find them all hanging out in the living room all hours of the day, both inside and out of practice. I started to think maybe they were just regular people, if not a bit eccentric. Then what makes you so convinced that they were aliens? Because I saw. Or maybe I didn't really see, but I saw enough. Molly and Cedra were alone together, in her room. They were talking. Did they say anything that might suggest where your sister has gone? Chambers asks. Danny shakes her head. No. About the band. Before Cedra came to Earth, Molly and Diego were experimenting with their music. They wrote a song, A Sound, from the Universe, using real audio recording from space remixed into the music. Cedra and Orlando were the sole residents of a small ship traveling across the universe. Somehow, the radio was able to receive the song as they neared our solar system. It became an instant favorite to the pair. Cedra told her that she fell in love with the sound of Molly's voice. She knew she had to travel to Earth and to meet her. Molly asked to see Cedra's true form. I watched as she reached between her voluminous curls, finding a hidden seal. Her face divided in two, and between the split bloomed something that looked like a translucent mushroom, seemingly filled with gelatinous innards. At the center was her face, the shape of which was indistinguishable save for a twin pair of large, dark eyes. The rest of her disguise pulled away like a tight-fitting diver's suit. 2 arms and legs, just like a human's. From her head swirled tendrils, reaching down towards her feet and hovering around her body protectively. She was a pale, indeterminable color, but her insides glowed a bioluminescent blue that pulsed along with what appeared to be her heartbeat. I was in awe and, well, embarrassed. I'm pretty sure she was entirely naked, though I don't know if her species has the same feelings of shame when it comes to nudity. And how did Molly react? It was obvious this was not the first time Molly had heard of Cedra being from outer space. Maybe there was a time when she doubted Cedra's space-faring tale, but I don't think she asked to see Cedra as herself as a challenge to her story. She knew, but for once she wanted to see Cedra as she really was. She definitely had time prior to this moment to accept it. But even so, she was still alarmed by her true form. She kept staring. Alarmed might not be the best choice of words. She was not startled by Cedra's appearance, but I think she was surprised to find it beautiful. That it only heightened the feelings she had towards Cedra. "What happened next?" Rosario asks, her voice sensitive. "It was better that I didn't watch," Danny blushes. She is too young to have similar interests, but not too young to be naive. "Some things are meant to be private," Danny says. "I do know some boundaries." This earns a laugh from Rosario. "Everything sounds as if it was going well for her. I can't imagine what changed," says Rosario. "There was an argument. It brings her discomfort to think about it now. I never heard Diego and Molly argue before. They've had disagreements, but have always been able to work through them. I knew whatever it was they were discussing, it was important, so I had to listen. Even if it was hard." "And do you think this argument was important?" "Yes. It was what they were arguing about," Danny says. "Cedra wanted to go home. She wanted to return to the stars. Sounds like typical band drama. Someone ducking out as the group is starting to get traction," says Rosario. "It wasn't that exactly. Diego didn't want to keep Cedra from her home planet if she wanted to go. But Molly, she wanted to go with her." The room falls silent. Danny isn't bold enough to meet eyes with either of the investigators, so she stares at a stain on the sofa instead. She feels the urge to scream or cry, but doesn't want to do so in front of strangers. She wishes that in remembering, she could go back and change how things had happened. Danny had made enough mistakes to know that life did not work that way. "Cute story, kid." Chambers is the one to break the silence. With those words, she portrays what she thinks of what Danny had told her. It's only a story, made up, meant for entertainment, or more likely to waste their time. Danny brings her foot back down against the bottom edge of the sofa. Its plush exterior quiets any noise. "Is there any way we can get in touch with... what did you say their name was?" Paper crinkles as Chambers flips a few pages back. "Orlando?" Even the way she says their name makes it apparent she thinks it's phony. "Maybe, but it won't be easy," she warns. With Cedra gone, the band was over. Orlando was reluctant to go with her. They weren't ready, they said. There was far more of Earth they wanted to see, not just the small town they first landed in with Cedra. Orlando initially wanted to come to Earth, not only to meet their favorite band, but because they had wanted to explore a new planet. Orlando is probably still on Earth, but as to where and how far they could have gotten, your guess is as good as mine. Chambers accepts the answer with disapproval. She scours in silence as she is met with yet another dead end. "So, she really left?" Rosario asks. "Your sister? With Cedra?" Danny feels pinpricks in her eyes, fighting the urge to cry, once again. She nods, returning her eyes to the stain on the couch and begins picking at a loose thread. "The day she left was so insignificant. I watched as she packed her backpack, withdrawn and unsure. She was leaving so much behind. I think she wasn't sure what to take with her because none of it was relevant to what her new life would be like. Mostly notebooks she filled with lyrics. A few articles of clothing she had grown attached to." Danny's voice cuts off. A lump forms in her throat and is difficult to speak through. "I saw her on the way out, but I hesitated to stop her. I think a part of me doubted she really had the guts to go. She never left the city before, let alone leave the entire planet behind. But, sure enough, the morning after, I woke up and she was gone. An unmade bed and a messy room left behind. Still, as it was now." Danny neglects to speak of the hours that followed that morning, how her mom had been uneasy at her daughter's absence, but trusting that she was at a friend's and that she would be home for dinner. How Danny chose to believe the same, hoped it to be true, until hour after hour passed. The sun sunk beneath the horizon, and still no sign of Molly. Even now, a doubt or a hope, she could not tell the difference, that Molly would return. And that was the last I saw of her, Danny says, in defeat. Another silence falls. Danny hears ice clink against the glass as Rosario downs the rest of her iced tea. She can feel Chambers' eyes narrow, becoming as slim as her lips. "Are you ready to talk for real now?" Chambers asks. It is the final frayed bit of string before it snaps. Danny rises to her feet. "You can choose to believe my story or don't, but I've already told you what I know," she says. Anger shakes within her. She hates the way it manifests in tears that she cannot stop from falling. "Wherever Molly has gone, it is further out of reach than any technology we have to travel. I know that she left willingly, and I know that she will only return on her own terms." She runs from the room, slamming the door behind her, letting that be her final say. She never wanted to admit to either of those things. The heartbreaking truth was that she knew Molly had wanted to go so bad that she would trade everything to leave Earth, and she knew she could never follow her sister. Danny finds herself in the garage. She pauses, though she wants to go further. There is nowhere she can make it to on foot. Nowhere worth going that is nearby. Her indecision grounds her, and frustration makes her breathing ragged. She sits on the makeshift stage, still set up the way it was for the band to practice on, and looks out towards the driveway where the police car still looms. The setting sun reflects like a small orange in its window. Danny hears the front door. Her mom sees the two investigators out. She tenses, assuming they are looking for her and for more questions. The buds return to her ears. She stops before turning the radio on. The investigators return to their car. "The mother said she was an imaginative one," Danny hears Chambers say. Rosario pauses, standing in the space of the open driver's seat, her eyes looking toward the sky as the stars were starting to show. Chambers clears her throat. "Well, come on," she urges her partner. "The stars seem a little larger now, don't they?" asks Rosario. Chambers declines to answer. "It's almost as if they are closer, like the universe isn't so distant anymore." Rosario sits in the driver's seat, closing the door behind her and fixing her seatbelt. She glances again at the sky, before igniting the engine. Wheels crunch over loose gravel as the vehicle backs out and drives away. Danny lays prone, looking at the spider webs that cover the garage ceiling. She keeps her music low, but lets it play, song after song, commercial after commercial. It's getting darker now. She is entirely concealed by the shadows until a light falls over her. For a moment, Danny believes it's a tractor beam, looking to collect her onto a hovering frisbee-shaped ship. Wishful thinking. Pulling an earbud out, she's met with the tired sigh of an old engine and realizes she's looking at headlights. The door opens and someone steps out, but the lights stay on. "Danny? What are you doing here, Diego?" She neglects to look at him, remaining sprawled on the stage. "I came to get some stuff. Equipment, you know. Thought it'd be easier for you two if it wasn't hanging around as a reminder," answers Diego. "You can take back everything she ever touched, but it still won't take away our memory of her," Danny says. Diego takes a seat on the stage. "I miss her too," says Diego. "She was my best friend." Danny sits up, passes her other earbud to him. He takes it and puts it in. "You know how, when people die, adults like to say they went to a better place or whatever?" Danny says. "Yeah. I know she isn't dead, but do you think that it's true for Molly?" "I know she really wanted to go," answers Diego. "So bad that it made her frustrated knowing that if she passed on the opportunity to leave Earth then, she'd never get the chance again." Diego falls silent. For a moment, all they hear is an ad for some product. I hated that conversation, but it would have been worse than knowing why she made the choice. She didn't even tell me, Danny says, her tone sour. There isn't anything keeping her from coming back, though, if she wants to. She knows Diego is being avoidant. The commercial ends. Music begins to play, starting with the low hum of a synth. What if she decides not to? Then maybe it's better she left, says Diego. Sometimes you need to choose for yourself and what is best for you. That's what she did. It's not necessarily a bad thing. If you put a bird in a cage too small, what sort of life is it to live? Other synths join in and the music begins to swell. I'm not happy with her choice, but I understand it. Do you really think she'll come back? Asks Danny. Vocals start. 2 female singers in harmony. I don't know, confesses Diego. The song continues to play, gradually catching their attention. Both are reluctant to speak. It's pretty and melancholic. It reminds Danny of a goodbye. I wish I wrote that synth line, says Diego. She sees what he means. Danny finds herself liking the song. It's equally familiar and unfamiliar. I like the vocals. She almost reminds me of... Danny cuts off. She meets Diego with wide eyes. He mirrors the expression. Is it? Could it be them? Diego smiles. I think so.
In this episode of Simultaneous Times, you heard The Ebb Somatic by Susan Rukeyser, with music by Fog Machine, and A Sound from the Universe by Robin Rose Graves, with music by Red Blue Black Silver. Theme music by Dane Lesko. Out now, Simultaneous Times Volume 1, Paperback Science Fiction Anthology, available at spacecowboybooks.com and lulu.com. Be sure to visit us at our store in Joshua Tree, California, or at spacecowboybooks.com. And connect with us on Instagram or Twitter. We'd love to know what you think of the program.